Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. Today we are going to decorate graduation hats. Now I'm going to decorate one with cardstock on my Cricut machine, and I'm also going to do another one with sublimation. So whatever type of crafter you are, there is a way to make custom graduation hats. Now this is a video I've been wanting to do for a while because I have made several graduation hats over the years and decorated the top. And I feel like a lot of people make it way more complicated than it should be. So I'm going to show you my method for decorating these, and that is basically to make a sheet that sort of attaches to the top. So you're basically decorating a sheet of paper is absolutely fine. So you're basically decorating that sheet of paper and then attaching it to the hat so that the entire hat is then decorated and the graduate can wear it. So because this is very everyone is going to want to make their own unique design, this is going to be very specific to the graduate, I'm going to kind of walk you through the steps on how to make your own. I do have a template for the graduation hat I'm using that you can cut on your Cricut machine. And then I did the words, and so the adventure begins. I did make an SVG as well as a printable file for those, but I'm going to show you how to add various elements that are specific to the graduate. So whether you use just my template or you use my design, either way, you can make a custom graduation hat that your graduate will love. So first of all, let's take a look at the supplies we're going to use for this project. The supplies you're going to need are going to depend on the type of topper you're going to make. So if you're going to make it with a Cricut machine, I'm going to make the one on my Cricut machine all out of cardstock. So I'm going to cut various colors of cardstock and I'm going to glue them together. Now this is Barely Art's glue. I was just trying out some new little containers for it, but it is the Barely Art glue. Now you could also use like HTV on cardstock or something like that, but you just need the materials, glue or adhesive to put it together, and your Cricut machine. You will also need some scissors, as well as I like glue dots to secure it to the graduation cap itself. Now, if you are going to sublimate your graduation hat topper, I'm going to use glitter cardstock for that. I'm going to cut the glitter cardstock on my Cricut machine, and then I'm going to add a sublimation print. So this is Sublimation ink printed on sublimation paper from a sublimation printer. And you might also want some heat tape as well as protective paper, and then you will need a heat source for this version. And then for this version as well, you'll need scissors and glue dots to attach it to the hat itself. So now let's head to Cricut Design Space as well as Canva and take a look at how to make those designs. Now to get either of these, I do have them for free in the description below this video, and just head there to download them. Then click Upload, Upload Image, click Browse and find the image on your computer. Now I would upload the SVG files in this case, and then you can add them to your canvas. Now this design was sized to meet my hat dimensions, which were 9.25 by 9.25 inches square, and I added a small hole in the center. And I will show you how to assemble this later. Now this version that is plain is perfect if you want to sublimate on glitter cardstock. You can just cut out a plain design and then print the design that you're going to sublimate onto it on a sublimation printer. This plain one is also perfect if you want to start from scratch and design your own graduation hat. I'm going to start with the version for my Cricut machine that already has some lettering on it. So it says, "And so the adventure begins." And because each graduate might want to customize their hat, I'm going to show you some customization options. Now, you can do the lettering within here as well. And the font I use to get started here is from Creative Fabrica, and it's called the Grand Holiday font. And there is a script as well as a sans option with this. So if you want this to say something else or you want to add some lettering, that's the font you would use. I'm going to go ahead and ungroup this because what I'm going to show you is that you could make each of these pieces out of a different color. So whether you're going to cut vinyl or cardstock, you could make each of the pieces of this a different color if you would like. Then for further customization, you could add shapes or even images. So I searched for a flower image, and I'm going to search for all of the free flower images. That way, if you don't have Cricut access, you could still personalize your graduation hat. So within this, you could add some flowers. You could even add rolled flowers that you could cut with your Cricut machine out of paper and add to the top of your graduation hat. I'm actually going to add this large square with flower cutouts. And I'm gonna make it almost the size of my paper here. So then I can start making each of these the color I want to make them. So I want to make the background a purple. I want to make this a yellow, and I want to arrange, send that backward, send backward, send backward. And then for all of the lettering, I think I want to make it a sort of a teal color. So I can just keep playing with the design here until I get something that I really like. And then I'm going to take all of the lettering and I'm going to attach that together so I can cut it at one time. Now, you might notice here that I want to make this whole overlay situation with this flower layer. However, my hole isn't going to cut out of there right now. So what I can do is make a duplicate of that background layer, click contour, hide the outer contour, and then I'm going to pick the flower layer, hold the shift key down and pick that circle that goes in the middle, then align and center, and then click slice. And then I can remove these slice results until I have just the slice result that is my flower layer with that circle out of it. So anything that overlaps the center circle, you might want to cut out in order to have room for that button that's usually in the center of a graduation hat. So now if I arrange this again, you can see that there's a circle all the way through the center in order to accommodate my button. I'm going to leave this version white and I'm going to cut it out of some glitter cardstock in order to sublimate on top. So let's head to Canva and see how to make a sublimation design. So I'm gonna head to Canva, I'm gonna click custom size and 8.5 by 11 because that's the size of the sublimation paper I have. So I mentioned that my graduation hat was 9.25 by 9.25, and this is only 8.5 wide. However, I'm just going to make it slightly smaller, and we are going to sublimate on the square that we're going to cut out of the Cricut machine, so it will fit on the hat. I do have a design, so if you want to click upload, then upload files and find the file on your computer, and add that file to your paper. And I'm going to make it as large as possible. Now, most printers are going to require a margin around the outside, so I am going to leave some room around the outside edge. Now, if I didn't want this to be as plain as just the lettering, I could add some other elements within Canva. Now, again, you could do your own lettering and put your own design on here. I'm just going to start with the lettering design. So I'm going to search travel, click graphics, and I'm going to sort by free. So if you don't have the paid version of Canva, you can still use this to make your designs. And a lot of these, add them to your canvas, you can actually change the color of them. So perhaps I really like this, but I don't want it in black and white. I could change it to something like pink and put it at an angle. Now we do want all of this to fit on our square hat, right? So if I click elements and add a square, I could put a square over the top of this. So I'm gonna make a square that's 8.5 by 8.5 inches, and I'm gonna do position and send it to the back. And now I can kind of see, let's make it a really light color. I can kind of make sure that this is going to look right on a square surface. So I have the lettering, I have my little design here that I added, and I could just continue to customize this with various elements in Canva if I would like. So now I've added several elements to this. You want to remember to leave that center blank for the hole. And now we can delete that outside square because we're not going to print it. We were just kind of using it to lay everything out. Then you can download this as a PDF for print, CMYK, and download, and then print on any sublimation printer. Be sure to mirror the design when printing. Now, because these are a little too large for the Joy Extra, I'm going to be using my Explore 4, and you can go ahead and click Make. Now I'm going to be using all cardstock. I'm going to cut on a mat and click Confirm. Because I'm cutting cardstock, I don't have to mirror or anything. Now, if you were using HTV and wanted to apply it to the top of the cardstock you're going to be cutting out, you would mirror the HTV mat. So now I can go ahead and click continue and cut these shapes on my Cricut machine. For each piece of cardstock you need to cut, just going to add it to a mat. I like a light grip mat for my cardstock. You do want to make sure it's down well on the mat, and one way to do that is with a brayer. Then you're just going to load your mat and press go to cut. Once each mat is done cutting, we're just going to remove it from the Cricut machine. And one tip, since I'm using all paper especially, is to flip the mat over when removing the cut piece. That way it doesn't bend and bow as much. Now I'll just repeat that process for all of my graduation hat pieces. Once you have all of your pieces cut, it is time to glue. I actually cut this teal color last to show you how you can use this to locate your letters. But the first thing I'm going to do is to put these two pieces together, and all you would need to do for that is to add glue to the back of the yellow piece. Then once you have glue all over this, you can just locate it. Now remember, we did the cutout for the hole, so there should be something to get a location on this. And you just want to make sure it's, you know, somewhat centered and straight. Remove any excess glue, and this part's ready. And now I can add the embellishments to the top. I removed the rest of the lettering pieces from the paper. Now, you want to be sure to get things like the tops of the eyes. You want to be sure to remove things like the centers of the letters. And then we kind of have a mess of cardstock over here. I'm going to use the piece that it cut out of in order to locate it. Now, I could have put the circle in this piece as well, so I would have had something to locate it by, but I'm just going to kind of wing it here. All right, so we're gonna say that looks like a good location, and then I can use this paper to locate each of the letters, and that makes sure that I put them the right direction too, right? So I'm gonna put glue on the back of each letter and just use this piece of paper to locate them right into place and glue each of the letters down. Then once you've added all the letters into place, you can just sort of carefully lift off this larger piece of paper. And I say carefully because you might lift some of the pieces you glued down a little bit. I would not wait until this is dry, just in case, like right there, I glued it to the paper just a little bit, but I can just fix that and put it back down. And now we can just set this aside and allow it to dry. For the sublimation version, I have the white glitter cardstock. Now, this has to be glitter cardstock. Glitter is going to be what makes the sublimation possible. And I cut out this template. I cut out this template with my Cricut machine. If you do not have a Cricut machine, just cut this square to the size of your hat using like a paper cutter. And you can sort of freehand in the center a circle. Just make it smaller than the button in the center of the hat. And I will show you, like I cut this one smaller, I will show you how that is going to work with the hat itself. If you freehand this, trust me, it is going to look fine on the hat. Now, I have my sublimation printed with sublimation ink on sublimation paper. And I do want to kind of trim this up. And I went the same distance, like between the E and the end as between the A and the end. So now I have sort of a square ready to sublimate on here. Now, the orientation of this is not going to matter. We can fix that later. However, you do want, of course, the center to be blank, but this design is sort of centered up, right? So it's centered up this way, it's centered up this way. So I can just sort of center it on the paper, leaving the same amount of area around the edges. Now you can hold it up to the light at this point and make sure that the hole is not covered by any of the graphic. Mine is not, so I am going to add just a few pieces of heat-resistant tape to the edges. I'm going to do 4 pieces of tape just to make sure nothing moves while we sublimate. Then for the sublimation, I have a heat-resistant mat. I'm going to put protective paper down on top of that. Then I'm going to put this glitter cardstock with the sublimation print on top. So the sublimation print is on top of the glitter cardstock, and then protective paper over the top. Now you do want to cover this entire thing with the press at the same time. It's a little bit big for me to be comfortable using the 9x9 Easy Press. It's possible, but I'm just afraid that I'm going to get it off a little bit. However, I do have the larger Easy Press, and that one's large enough, I feel like, to cover the entire thing. We're gonna heat 400 degrees, 45 seconds. Once that heating's complete, we'll just remove that, remove the protective paper, and remove the sublimation print, and it looks gorgeous. So this might bow a little bit, like the paper itself, so you might want to put it under your heat resistant mat to cool off, and that will help flatten it back out. Now it's time to add these to the graduation hat. Now, whichever one you're working on does not matter, we're gonna add them in the same way. So what I'm gonna do, the buttonhole is a little smaller than the button itself because I want to work this paper under the button for a more professional look. So all I'm going to do is just snip at whatever is around here, just really small little cuts, about 4 of them. Might need more, might need less, depending on the material you used and how stiff it is. Then you do want to make sure, like, this is the front, this is the back. Like, you want to determine the front and the back and determine how you want this placed in relationship to the front. So like, this is the front, so I'm going to do it like this so that it'll wear on the hat like this. Then it's all oriented correctly, we're ready to go. You may have to make these slits larger, but just sort of push this down around the button. And if you need to, add some more slits, but your goal is for it to sort of pop on there and for these little slits and everything to go up under the button. So that's just about right there. So what's going to happen is it's going to sort of go like this, and now I can work these slits under the button, and you can use something flat to do this with, but it's just going to give it just a professional look. It'll look like it was made on the hat if all of these edges are up underneath the button. All right, so I went all the way around, worked that paper up underneath there, and you can still orient this, right? So don't worry if it gets off a little bit while you're doing that. Then you want to make sure it is on the hat straight. And like, it would probably be okay like this, but if they throw their hat in the air or something, you don't want this to fall off. So I just use some glue dots, and I just apply them in a few places around the outside edge and secure them to the hat. Now, this was the Cricut example that I'm adding to the hat here. The Sublimation example would be added in the exact same way. And the reason I like these glue dots is because later, if you want this design to come off of here for some reason, like they want it for a photo and you don't want this on here, the glue dots remove very easily. So you can always remove this from the hat later if you need to. And now this hat is done. You can add glue dots in as many places as you need to secure it into place. Now the tassel will also need to go under the button. That's what the button is for. However, I've never had an issue. It always goes under there fine, even though I added the paper under there. So that should be fine as well. So don't let that concern you. And there you have a decorated graduation hat, and you can do this with a Cricut, or you could add this version and do it with Sublimation. All right, so whether you have a Cricut machine or a Sublimation printer, you can now make a custom topper for any graduation hat. So I absolutely love the way both of these turned out, and I love that you can customize this one for your particular graduate. I feel like they're gonna wanna make their own design and put their own individual spin on this one. So I wanted to walk you through the steps of allowing them to do so with free elements. So in both Cricut Design Space as well as Canva, I showed you how to sort for those free elements so that you don't have to have the paid version of either of those to make these hats. Now I will link to all the supplies that I'm using as well as my templates in the description below this video, so head there and grab those. And I did want to note one more time that the glitter cardstock that I'm using, that's the only one I tested with this project. It is going to need to be a glitter cardstock, and the glitter is going to have to be like on top. It can't be like a smooth glitter cardstock. And not all glitter cardstocks are going to work, and not all are going to work the same. So if you want the results I got, I can only guarantee those with the exact brand of cardstock that I purchased, but you can sublimate on glitter cardstock, and this is one way to do that. So now all that's left for you to do is to start designing your own graduation hat, whether that is cutting with your Cricut machine or using your Sublimation printer. I know you and your graduate are going to love this one. So now if you have any questions about anything I covered, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you liked this video and it helped you, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.